Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, and if you're seeing this, I'm on the road today. Could be a plane, could be a long drive, but wherever I am, I'm out there connecting with patriots who love faith, family, and freedom just like you do. I never want this channel to go dark just because I stepped away from the studio, so my team and I set aside this special session in advance for days just like this. So tell me in the comments where you are watching from and how you're living out faith, family, and freedom right where God planted you. This movement does not pause when I travel. It keeps going because you keep going. God bless.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. I've never been to Hungary before. I've been looking so forward to this because I've been studying Budapest and its architecture from afar. And I left the United States as Stephen, but I'm coming back as István. So my life has changed, and thank you for that. And I'm also I'm very excited to be here too because, as you know, Hungary has become very famous around the world, particularly among American conservatives, for its commitment to cultural and civilizational renewal. And it's been very inspiring, particularly for Americans, to see a country rise out of the ashes of decades of war and Soviet occupation, an astonishing return to its original Habsburgian grandeur. And now I'm getting to see it firsthand. And so I'm like a kid, we call it in English, a kid in a candy store. I just feel like everywhere I look, I get the view of the Parliament building from my room. And I got up very early this morning because I'm a little jet lagged. And the sun was rising. And it was shining off the Danube, and I'm just looking at the Parliament building. I'm just saying, thank you, God. This is it's just so wonderful. And, it's wonderful what you're doing as well, because there's something here that I think many other cities have lost. A sense that a civilization built something permanent and something that was meant to proclaim who you are, what you believe, and how those beliefs are as timeless as the stone structures that embody those beliefs.
But first, if you're suffering from joint pain, it's not random. Doctors from the Wellness Center say it's your body stuck in a constant state of inflammation. If you deal with arthritis, you know it's not just a little joint pain. It can feel like constant stiffness and swelling and discomfort that makes everyday movement harder. Arthritis is driven by inflammation that never really shuts off, keeping your joints irritated, swollen, and in constant pain. That's why researchers are taking a closer look at ivermectin. Originally developed as an antiparasitic, ivermectin has been used safely for decades. Now, emerging research suggests it may help calm the body's inflammatory response, supporting less swelling, less joint breakdown, and more comfortable movement. The wellness company offers American-made ivermectin tablets, doctor prescribed and delivered right to your door after a simple online intake form. Now is your opportunity to experience its anti-inflammatory potential. Go to twc.health/Turley and use code Turley to save $45 off plus free shipping. That's twc.health/Turley.
But I want to ask you a question. A city can rebuild its cathedrals, it can restore its castles, it can construct its facades and its colonnades, all of which are very amazing for an American, since our oldest buildings are 100 years old. But the real question then is, where does the soul of the civilization live? Where is civilization actually formed? And our classical forefathers, the great philosophers of Jerusalem, Athens, and Rome, had a profound answer to that question. A civilization is ultimately formed in our children, our pedia. And that means it's formed in our education. So I think that's why we're here today. The same civilizational impulse that's rebuilding the castles and the cathedrals is also rebuilding our education. The cathedral and the classroom are not separate projects. They're two expressions of the same idea. You can't have one without the other. And what I hope to show in our two sessions together is that we're all here part of an astonishing civilizational renewal that's happening all over the world, for good or for bad. So scholars from a number of different disciplines, post-secular studies, demographic studies, sociology, geopolitical theorists, they're all together recognizing from their own disciplinary vantage point that the world is going through a profound transformation. The great secular experiment, that confident Enlightenment wager that modernity would slowly but surely dissolve faith, drain the cathedrals, empty the seminaries, and leave humanity in a disenchanted world governed by technique and managed by experts. That experiment is failing. It looked like it was going to win for some time, no question. But scholars all over the world are admitting the experiment has never been as weak as it is now. And this is largely because we're seeing nothing less than the great ancient civilizations of the past in almost, sorry, I like anime, kind of like kaiju-like fashion, rise up from the depths below and returning in all of their splendor all over the world. Confucian China, Hindu India, Shinto Japan, Ottoman Turkey, political Islam, and most especially what I hope to show today, the rise of a new Christendom, a vast and vibrant Christian civilization. And there are numerous explanations as to why this is happening, why the world is returning to the great civilizations of the past. There's the Russian-American sociologist Peter Sorokin, who founded the sociology department at Harvard back in 1930. He seems to be closest to the mark in his profoundly insightful conception of how civilizational life works out. So he argued that all civilizations ebb and flow back and forth between the sacred and the secular, what he called the ideational and the sensate. But for Sorokin, what's key here is that all civilizations are rooted in religion, because religion provides an eternally sacred source for continuous societal renewal. But all societies also entail a kind of secular domain as well, where we have to figure out how to eat and build and defend and solve problems and deal with life's endless adversities. But what's key here is that the secular domains of society are always, without exception, built on the foundation of the sacred, such that the secular functioned a lot like a temporal, spatial, material manifestation of the eternal, spiritual, immaterial sacred. For Sorokin, the society begins to go secular when its temporal, spatial, material life takes on a life of its own. It amputates itself, it separates itself from its sacred source. So, for example, the Harvard law historian Harold Berman has shown how Western civil law is actually rooted in medieval canon law, the law of the medieval church. But what Berman recognized was that over time, increasingly, the practice of civil law took on a conceptual autonomy, and eventually it became secularized. It completely dislodged itself from any recourse to its sacred source. The problem, according to Sorokin, and he says we see this over and over and over in history, in the Roman Empire, for example, is that the secular, in dislodging itself from the sacred, dislodges itself from the eternal source of societal renewal. And as such, the secular always inevitably withers. It shrivels, and it begins to slowly but surely die. It collapses. And that seems to be what's happening today, as scholars are increasingly recognizing that this modern world that in many ways began in the 18th century Enlightenment has reached its limits, and it's just beginning to wane. It's exhausting itself. But again, what's so fascinating in all of this, as Sorokin noticed, the sacred roots, the religious foundations of society don't die. And why is that? Well, it's because they're eternal. They can't die. At most, they can be replaced. Like when we saw the Roman pagan empire replaced, as it were, with the Roman Christian empire. The religious foundations of societies really do provide eternal resources for societal renewal. And so what we're seeing today is, as the secular world rots, it's turning into a kind of global compost that's reawakening the seeds that are blossoming all over the world, the sacred seeds, and restoring the great ancient civilizations to prominence once again. That's Sorokin's explanation. Either way, civilizations appear to be back. And we're seeing it here in Hungary, we're seeing it in Poland, and we're seeing it in the rise of what scholars call civilizational populism that's sweeping particularly the European continent. But then that brings us back to our original question. Where does the soul of a civilization live? Or as Sorokin might ask, where is the sacred source of civilization preserved and maintained regardless of what's happening around us? And what I hope to show you in our time together is that you are that soul. You as administrators and educators, you provide the indispensable role of forming your students, not merely filling them with information, not merely preparing them for careers, but making them into a certain kind of person, a person who knows what's true, who recognizes what's beautiful, who understands what's good, and who has the moral and intellectual courage to defend all three. Every civilization that's ever endured has had at its center an institution whose task was the formation of that kind of person. The Athenian Gymnasium, the medieval cathedral school, Calvin's Geneva Academy. When those institutions weakened, the civilization hollowed out. But when they're renewed, the civilization rises again. And you are that renewal. The politicians may get the headlines and the generals get the monuments, but we as teachers, it's always been the teachers. I mean, Christ was referred to as rabbi, teacher. We're the ones who decide what the next generation loves. And what a generation loves, it will fight for, it'll build for, and it'll sacrifice for. And that's why you're here. That's why your work matters. And that's why I want to argue that the classical Christian education renewal is the heart of any worldwide civilizational restoration. I want to start with what seems to be a deceptively simple question. Admittedly, it's in English, of course. And then I want to ask my Hungarians here a little question, because I've been doing a little research here and see if my research was right. What precisely is education?
Gang, if you enjoyed this lecture, there's more to it. Part 2 drops this Thursday, June 4th. Don't miss it.